Hey there, welcome back to the Fast Lane. Over the last 5 years, I've been talking about the cars of the early movies. However, some stories cannot be completed until we find where all the cars are. You have to remember that every car that we use, they have to have backup cars. There's a Hero 1, there's a Hero 2, there's Stunt 1, Stunt 2, Stunt 3, and so forth and so forth. Where are all these cars? And I can't tell the stories until I get all that information, but it's getting harder and harder. In the past few years, I have started seeing some of the Fast and Furious cars come up for sale, but only a few. Where is the rest of them? A few years ago, a Stunt Supra came up for auction. It sold for almost $200,000, despite the fact the interior was stripped because, after all, it was a stunt car, so it wasn't built out like the Hero 1 car. But for $200,000, that was a good price. Then, back in 2022, another Supra came up for auction at Barrett-Jackson. I was invited to appear on camera to talk about that particular car. That car sold for $550,000. Still, we don't know where all the other Supras are. We had 8. Where are the other ones? We know 3 of them. The rest of them, nobody knows. And then last year, in 2023, the Hero 1 Fast 4 GTR, driven by Paul Walker, sold for $1,357,000. But where did the other Fast 4 Skylines go? I know where one is, but the rest of them are missing. I remember that most of the Tokyo Drift cars seem to have completely vanished. A few sold started around 2008, but for the most part, these cars are nowhere to be seen at all, anywhere. Even with the advent of social media, I'm not seeing these cars. Where are they? So then I decided to follow the trail of some of these cars. The first one I went looking for was the 1996 R33 GTR in Tokyo Drift. I've resisted the temptation to talk about this car for a few reasons. Well, first, the history was not clear, and frankly, this car had a pretty small role. However, I really liked that scene, and number 2, I thought the paint job was horrible, and I want to know the backstory about that. I always called that car the splooge Skyline because it looks like kind of bodily fluid, if you'd catch my drift. But basically, every GTR is special, so I would have thought that this car would have emerged a long time ago, but that didn't happen. How is that possible? A GTR from a movie, nobody knows where it is? The original Skyline was sourced specifically for Tokyo Drift by a company called New Era Imports. Their website notes this particular Skyline GTR was originally supplied as an unmodified, low-mileage example. Then, when it got to California, it got modified before use in the film. So they sold the raw car, and then they fixed it up here in California. There were 2 of these cars created. One for the street scene that you saw in the film. The other car that they used was for the interior car footage, for the girls' reactions. And I just thought that was a really cool kind of scene. It's pretty accurate. Changes made to the GTRs were purely cosmetic, with custom paint job using House of Color paintwork. They used some very expensive 19-inch Volk Racing CE28 and Forge alloy wheels, which were specially made for this car by Ray's. When sourced originally for Universal, this car, like I said, was completely standard specimen. Had no performance modifications, not an exhaust, not anything, nothing. It came in as it came. They didn't need performance modification. The car was just basically just stopped. And then after the movie, New Era Imports bought these 2 cars back on speculation. Then they offered these cars for sale. And if they found a buyer, the buyer could choose to have New Era to restore the car or to lower the price. Unfortunately, these cars have disappeared. After 17 years of gathering information of Fast and Furious cars, I still have never seen anything about these GTRs again, ever. Not in pictures, not on social media, and not even at the auto museums, or not at any of the shows that I've been going to in Germany, Italy, Holland, Belgium, France, England, you name it. Never seen them. Where are these cars? So this goes back to what I've been saying for years. When the first movie came out, there was much talk about it for a long time. Some of it was good, some of it bad, but they were talking about it for years. And then 2 Fast and Furious came out 2 years later. And well, some people liked that movie, but some people didn't. But for the most part, the excitement dwindled even further. I'm speaking about here in the United States. I don't know what was going on in Europe at the time, but down here, nobody was talking about those movies at that point by 2005. Again, there was no social media back then, so I don't know what people were saying in Europe or Japan, Thailand, or Australia. After their second movie, it took almost 4 more years before they released Tokyo Drift. Unfortunately, Tokyo Drift was the lowest performing movie in the franchise, even till today. So it was the most realistic one, but it made the least amount of money. That wasn't good. But after that, they took a break, right? They went into Fast 4. But by that time, the excitement for these movies in the USA was pretty much dead, completely. From the year 2007 until 2018, I didn't talk to anybody about these movies publicly because nobody cared. And by 2008, the country fell into a recession. Movie cars were trading for pennies on a dollar, and they're changing hands every month, it seemed like. Car museums started acquiring these cars at auctions, which were very cheap. Anyway, cars like this R33 was underwhelming to say the least. The scene was well done though, but it just didn't tickle anybody's fancy. We all remember the scene, right? Sean Boswell asks Han why he drifts, and he takes Sean on a drive through Tokyo, where Han's Veilsai Fortune RX-7 finds the car and drifts around it several times, and you see the reactions. We've all done it one way or another. So that was very, I thought, accurate for most people, I would think. I love the fact that one of the high-profile JDM racer girls, Verena May, was inside the GTR, which was cool. That was cool to see that. Those GTRs were bought by New Era Imports. Like I said, those cars went to the facility in England. There, they were restored and then resprayed and then sold. However, the cars still live on the New Era Imports website for sale. That was 4 years ago at least. Japanese people are strange. It takes them 15 years to update their websites. I know these cars were sold, but where did they go? Somebody has these cars. Somebody, where? In fact, New Era Imports had their hands in several Tokyo Drift cars, including Han's Veilside Fortune RX-7, Neela's RX-8, the Mona Lisa S15, the JX-100 Twin Turbo Chaser. And my subject for today, Mory Motors top secret equipped 2002 Fairlady Z. Now there were 3 of these cars. We know that. So here are the specs, which took a lot of digging. The car was adorned with a real top secret G-Force body kit. Price, $6,000 per body kit. Ouch. And that was back in, what, 2005? In the rear, they mounted a matching top secret carbon fiber wing, $2,400 each. Remember, there's 3 of those, and a top secret G-Force aero hood to finish the kit. Now, that was a fantastic build. Wheels were 18 by 10 inch Volk Racing GTC Gold shod in the back with Toyo T1R process measuring 275, 35, 18, I think it was. In the front, they used 18 by 9 wheels and 255, 35, 18 T1R Toyo process. Inside the car, you would find Recaro profile spa seats with Takata MPH 34R racing seatbelts and the Sparco steering wheel. And of course, there was a nitrous bottle in the rear hatch, but obviously it was never connected because it was a real actor driving the car. In fact, the car was painted a hue from House of Color that looked very much like the top secret color. Then they splashed on some stupid tribal graphic. Why did they do that? This car didn't get much screen time, unfortunately. However, I ran into this car at a car show in Göteborg in Elmia, Sweden in 2018, along with other couple movie cars. And last year, in 2023, I saw this car again. It's now owned by Chrome Cars. I also got to drive it for 50 feet, but the car was really in good shape. And it was a nice build and it was very solid. So where are the rest of these cars? Where do they go? When auction prices are climbing every year, why aren't these owners coming out of the woodwork? Most of the owners of these movie cars have owned these cars for many years, and some have been holding them for more than 10 years. If they want to cash out, the time is coming. It really is. Case in point, the gentleman who owns my movie GTR from Too Fast, Too Furious was offered $2.1 million for that car 2 years ago. Even though the car has been stripped of 90% of the parts that were on the car when I had it. And he said no to $2 million. I was like, Jesus Christ. But if you looked at the car, you wouldn't even recognize the car, and he turned down $2 million. Okay, whatever. And last year, the Fast 4 GTR sold for almost $1.4 million. That's a lot of money. This is the time. It really is. I thought Han's RX-7 would have surfaced by now. Nope. This year, I learned the whereabouts of the Dominic Toretto Hero 1 RX-7. It's still in California, and I learned this through a colleague. I was able to pass a message to the owner that I had a buyer who would pay a very nice price. Guy doesn't want to give it up. Okay, can't go crying 5 years now when there's another recession. And last year, Chrome Cars acquired one of the RX-7s used in the first 2 movies. It was used for the first movie, and then we painted it orange, and it used in the second movie. And they're in the process of restoring that car, just as they did with the Slapjack Supra that they bought a couple years ago, which is a Hero 1 car. They also have the Hero 1 Jetta. Several car museums have cars from the Fast and Furious movies. A lot of them are scattered around the country. I don't know of any overseas in car museum, but it seems that for most of the fans who interact with me, they care more about the Japanese cars. I'm not sure why. The same goes at the auctions that are featuring muscle cars from any of the movies in the franchise. Those don't draw ginormous price tags. I don't know why. It's the cars that were in the first couple movies, they're fetching the high prices. Because for the movies that came after Tokyo Drift, the cars were basically stunt cars. They weren't fancy cars. They were just transient. They come in to a scene and they would usually wreck in its first appearance on the screen, which usually take 1 to 2 minutes. And then after Fast 5, Paul's untimely death meant that there would never be a Fast and Furious car that Paul Walker drove again. But if a movie car driven by Paul Walker goes to the auctions, it's going to command a really high price. I've seen it in person. But that may change soon because one of the cars that Paul drove in one of the movies is going to be on sale. It's not the RS 1600 Escort. It's not the Hakusuka from Fast 5. It's another movie car. And this car is sure to draw a 7-figure at the sale. How much is it going to go? Well, we don't know. We'll see what happens. But like I said, we are nearing the top of the market values. I can't imagine them going up higher. This sale might open the floodgates to the owners who are holding valuable cars of the franchise. So stay tuned. I'll announce the start of the sale as I get the pictures and videos next week. If you're interested in bidding, spend this time selling off the kids that you don't need, or start selling one of your extra body parts. I mean, how many people really need both of their kidneys? Really? Really? Okay. That's it for today.